So their supply curve is just they give out however much energy they give out, and it doesn't matter what the price is. That's a good first approximation. There actually are another set of plants that run that way, baseline coal plants. And they're not going to blow up on you, but every time you heat them and cool them, it puts a lot of stress on the plant and causes things to break. So what you want to do with a baseline coal plant is you want to turn it on and you want to leave it on. And they're very cheap to operate. So if you can make a graph of this fossil-fueled supply curve for California, which I've done, although we buy it from out of state, you get stuff like baseload plants and coal here. Nuclear is not even environmental now. And then you do different things. Then the next set of things for us that are big are different types of gas-fired power plants. Some of them are meant to run for hours and hours and hours on end. You can even run them without turning them off. And others of them are turbine plants, and they're meant to spin up very quickly, provide their power, and as soon as the demand for power goes around, spin back down. All these plants differ in how expensive they are to run. So if you have a price that's quite low, then only the most efficient plants run. As the price goes up, you turn on plants that are less efficient. When you're getting up in here, you're running your gas turbines. Pretty soon you're running older plants that you shouldn't be running, but you desperately need the electricity for a little bit of time. And it produces a supply curve that actually looks like this. This is out of a paper by Severin Bornstein and several others. If you like energy stuff, go look for the UC Energy Institute, and you'll find an awful lot of their papers are readable and interesting. You can certainly do worse than read their stuff. Wrong way. So I've drawn an equilibrium here. I put it in a demand curve. I don't really know what the demand curve looks like. I know it's really, really steep because the residential consumers don't see the change in price. I mean, why does this market not work? I'm sitting at home. I'm thinking, should I do a load of laundry? It's 8 o'clock in the evening. It's 110 degrees in the valley. The electrical system is crushed to the point of collapsing, but they still charge me the same 20 cents a kilowatt hour. It's still going to cost me $1 to do the load of laundry. No price signal ever got to me. Right? And that's going to produce a very steep demand curve. I'm only paying by the month, and in essence, I should be paying by the minute. So I don't respond. Industries respond. Industries have various agreements that allow them to cut back. Some consumers have agreements that allow them to cut back, and so on and so forth. The demand curve is pretty steep. I just drew it steep. Standard, there's $32 a megawatt hour. That's the right answer. It went from like 32 a megawatt hour to like 400 a megawatt hour. That's a lot of money for manipulating the market. And that's a pretty normal hourly electric amount for us in gigawatt hours. So I'm asking the question using these pictures. So what would happen if we started taxing electricity to make up with carbon content? So first I could do an output quota. So if you imagine a problem where you said, all right, again, like our story, where output and the amount of carbon are going to be more or less the same. So that's shoved away from reality, where I can change from coal to natural gas to renewables. But that's been abstracted from. It's a very simple example. So what happens if I cut back a little? Look, it does. A little tiny cutback, 0.3 gigawatt hours, is going to drive your price quite a bit. It's going to drive your price $8. The price going up roughly 25%. That's pretty big. You're going to have a lot of screaming consumers there. Oh, I think that's all I did with it. There's more I do with it in the text. You could ask it as a tax. So what would your tax have to be to get them to produce 14.9? You just read it off the graph. How much? Sunset Labs are here. Yeah, $8. The difference between 31 and 39. If I shifted this curve up by 8, that would do the job. So there's an example. So there's more in Chapter 2 on electricity than I'm telling you. But that's all I'm going to do electricity. Look at me. Anything else you want on this? Move on to the next. So as far as I'm concerned, we're done with supply and demand. And, oh, now I have to go find it. I'm not being very good today. I downloaded it already. I just don't remember what I did with it. It's Ditzy instructor time. I can't remember what I did with stuff. I had my hands on it this morning. Luckily, Airvaris 2 is nice and fast. All right, we're there. So now we're going to switch gears. And we're going to talk about an economist's notion of good and how market failures violate our notion of good. That's where we're going. So let me tell an economist story the way economists would want to tell it. You notice I say economist a lot. I suppose the person, if you haven't found the difference yet, you will by the end of the term. So wolves. We used to hate wolves. We used to actually pay people to shoot wolves. And we did a very good job of it, and there weren't very many wolves left. Big surprise. And then we realized, well, wolves do a job. They're not just running around eating sheep. They actually have a job to do. And the job that a wolf does is it takes a deer or an elk or something like that, and it doesn't allow them to stand in the middle of the stream and eat the green grass. Because if they do that, they'll get eaten. They got to keep moving along. If they have to move along, then the willow trees on the sides of the streams will grow, and they will shade the streams, and the temperature in the streams will fall, and the fish production will go up. So if you want to put the system sort of more back the way it was, it seems like a good idea in this case, then somebody has to keep all these herbivores out of the streams. Unless you're volunteering to do that, the best idea is let the wolves do it. So you put the wolves back in the system, you'll change how it looks. They did that in Yellowstone, by the way, and they rapidly changed what the Yellowstone ecosystem looked like with a relatively small number of wolves. So it worked. So it's obviously good for Yellowstone, but ranchers don't like it. And there's two reasons ranchers don't like it. The first reason we can take care of, and we do. There's three reasons, I think. Reason one is, on occasion, wolves tear sheep. Growing sheep is worth, I don't remember, it was $400 or something like that. And in some year that I have the numbers, 429 sheep, $161,000 grand total damages. A private group set up the Bailey Wolf Indemnification Fund and simply bought the dead sheep. So if your sheep is torn by a wolf, you call up whoever it is, your local agent, I think, and he comes out and he says, yeah, those are wolf tracks. Yeah, that's a dead sheep. We'll get you your check. So that's the way economists want to tell the story. Why? Everyone who likes the Yellowstone ecosystem is better off. The ecosystem is made more pristine, has higher fish, in all dimensions it's better, and we who enjoy it are better off. Easy. The ranchers, as I just told the story, are not worse off. So they sold the sheep to the wolves instead of selling it to the meat market. Big deal. They even got saved the problem of having to transport the thing. So they're not any worse off. Some people are better off. What's not to like about this? That's the economist story. And now I'll tell you some things I learned after I told my happy story, which don't make it so happy. So now we're into reality land. It shouldn't be in your notes, and don't write it on the test. It's not about that. It's about reality. So to keep animals out of the streams and keep them moving, which is good for the grassland, they reduce the amount the animals energy balance, right? The animal now has to do more moving per blade of grass eaten. And so the sheep won't get as fat. And the technical term for that is the wolves worry the sheep. Now, the farmers aren't being paid for that, and I've never seen anyone quantify it. But in that sense, they would be worse off. And then the other obvious thing is, well, if you're a rancher, you probably live there. And not only do you probably have sheep, but you probably have children. And you're probably none too cool about the idea of your children playing outside next to the wolves. And we don't deal with that either. Even though the number of wolf attacks on people, like the number of mountain lion attacks on people, is so small that you could simply neglect it. So those are the two pieces of the story we don't want to tell. If you tell those two pieces of the story, then the farmers are worse off. The environmental interests are better off. And we don't have a clear answer that this is good policy. I need to know more. Like, I care about environmentalists and not ranchers. That would do it. Or maybe I could say the benefits to the environmentalists are $2 billion, and the cost to the ranchers are really only $50,000. And even though it's money to one people rather than the other, the bigger amount of money is so much bigger than the smaller, it's a good idea. Right? You have to make some argument like that. It's not just a slam dunk. It's not just, look, there are two parties here, and they're both made better off, or at least no one's made worse off. So what are we talking about? It's a slam dunk. We're done. We don't have to go quantify anything. So the reality isn't as happy. So we'll get some terminology out of all this. How happy somebody is in our lingo is utility, and I'll just use the word from now on. And I can say their utility went up, and I can say their utility went down. Those are sensible things. What I cannot say is her utility went up by 6 utils because she came down front. I have no way of measuring this stuff. All I can do is say one situation is better than the other in the sense that you're happier. She's happier down front than she is sitting on the side of the room and yelling at her. Right? That I can say. Her utility, therefore, went up. But I don't know by how much. So utility only tells me a better or worse thing. Goods we've described, and we have a really broad idea of goods. Tangible goods like things that ring during the class we get. Things that we call services. Professor services. You are consuming professor services, right? It's not a tangible good. You can't put your hands on it. Tangible means touch. But it's a good. You bought it in some crazy way, and now you're stuck with it. So it's a good. So broad idea. If it's something tangible or intangible and it can make somebody happier, that's good enough. It's good. They can do it indirectly. Wolves could make more willows. Willows could make more fish, and I'm happier because there are more fish. Still going to call the wolves a good. So very, very broad. Environmental services. Some goods are provided by the environment. Oxygen is a good example. That's an environmental service. The air provides an environmental service. It provides oxygen for you to breathe. It's as legitimate a good as any other. Turns out not to have a price, but it still changes your happiness in a quite noticeable way. Last, existence services. And one of the students 2 years ago gave some examples that made me never want to say it again. We'll get there. Maybe I'll talk about it if you don't find it. But the idea that I could be happier because I know there are wolves in Yellowstone, and it just makes me feel happy. It's actually called the armchair environmentalist. I'm sitting here in my armchair, and I am feeling happier now that wolves have been restored to the ecosystem, and I would be willing to pay for that. And so you could have a whole piece of the subject, which I tried to find out. What is it worth for the existence services, and is that more or less than it costs to provide the wolves? The last one, existence services, you should think about, why do you not always like this? It seems really innocuous when I state it as, I feel better because the San Francisco garter snake has been preserved. And you might even go along with, you could ask me, how much would you be willing to pay to preserve the San Francisco garter snake? And I might say, I'd be willing to pay $40. I might even quantify it. But I want you to think for a while that you're a conservative Republican, socially conservative Republican, and you want to turn this existence services argument to your benefit. And we'll see if anyone comes up with some of the awful possibilities for the argument. Well, back to our wolves. We like this story because in the telling of it, everybody is made better off. I don't have any work to do here. All I have to do is say, hey, wait a minute. There are two parties to this, and they're both better off. What's not to like? That's it. That's our world. And we give it a name after Vilfredo Pareto lived, give me a date for him? 200 years? 18-something? Yeah, roughly. Google is always available if you want to find out. And this is a key concept. So I have some bargain, a deal. When at least one party to the deal is made better off, their utility goes up, and nobody's utility goes down. No party is made worse off. Then I say the deal is Pareto improving. So typical market transactions are Pareto improving. I bought a peanut butter cookie. I gave Pat Brown's money. Was I better off? Yes, otherwise I didn't have to buy it, right? So clearly I'm better off. And the same argument works for them. They didn't have to sell me a peanut butter cookie. They only did it because it made them better off. So voluntary transactions in which there are only two partners, or market transactions which there's nobody else involved, are Pareto improving. That's the sense in which economics works. These bargains all make every part of the bargain better off. Okay, so examples of market trades that are Pareto improving, I mean, just about anything where there's no third party involved. That's going to work. You give me examples of things you can buy, market trades. You voluntarily buy, they voluntarily sell, but somebody, not necessarily the two of you, in fact, almost necessarily not the two of you, is made worse off. You should be able to do that. Who's the third party and how are they? I bought it voluntarily. I'm better off. You sold it to me voluntarily. You're better off. Who's worse off? Okay, so she's got an accident, or if you're stupid enough to hang around bars when they close, there's lots of fights to be had. I mean, it's not a problem. Go to virtually any bar, stay there late enough, and throw a pitcher of beer on somebody, and chaos will ensue, I guarantee you. All right, so they didn't bargain for that. So you bought the alcohol. I'm always going to rescue these things from your reasonable complaints, right? So you bought the alcohol. When you bought the alcohol, you knew there was a probability you would drive, and there's a probability if you drove you'd get in an accident. You knew this when you bought the alcohol, and you decided to buy the alcohol anyway. So you bought the alcohol and accepted the lottery on getting killed, right? And you did this voluntarily. So you must be better off. But the poor person you ran over in the crosswalk, they didn't ask for this. They just got run over in the crosswalk. So anytime you have a voluntary trade, we'll try to rescue the argument and say it was voluntary. At some point, we'll push this. When we talk about the theory of demand, we'll push this, and you'll see I have a picture postcard heroin addict, and I will deflect all of your complaints about her, that she's being voluntary, and you still won't like it, and that's good. And just because we have this concept doesn't mean you should be in favor of people driving drunk, right? We are clear on that, right? This is an economic concept. This is not an excuse for you to let your best friend buy the last beer and drive. You're like allowed to spill the beer or whatever you have to do to stop it. So we're clear on that. Yes? So any third-party thing, we make third-party worse off. It's going to work. So you want to destroy my armchair environmentalist. You're already at him. He hasn't even lived 4 minutes in the class, right? Because if I admit to him, then every time somebody goes out there and does something reasonable, like buys their groceries and carries them home anything other than like this, right? They will have made my armchair environmentalist worse off, and you've killed off my idea that there are any trades which are Pareto improving. Yeah, so that will make things fail rapidly. So be careful about how much you want to embrace Mr. Armchair Environmentalist. Now, child slavery, you can get me with, but child labor, I find that child labor is a little vexed. Child labor is a vexed concept. I mean, you now have to ask, are the children better off or worse off with the child labor? They could be worse off. Right? You imagine a family that doesn't have enough food. The kid don't do child labor, the kid don't live. So you can imagine telling the story that way, and you can imagine telling the story the other way, in which the kid would have gone to school and been fine, but the parents needed their gum, soda, and alcohol. Right? So you can tell that story either way. Economists are we're perverse. So as soon as you tell the story, we're going to go push at you with a story which they might be better off. Now, if my cousin David Barker ever finds this, I'm going to hear holy hell, because he wanders around the world taking pictures of children at work, and he has several books of just horrific photos of kids in brickyards, little kids like this big in brickyards and stuff like that. So I'm at risk for my answer to you. Well, yeah, but you can push on that a little bit, right? So when you buy a weapon, you're also buying a lottery that your child will get the weapon. I don't care what you do. One of my friends told me the story about, and then they walked into the house, and there was the 9-year-old, and he unlocked the safe where the bolt is, found where the bullets were hidden, and jimmied the gun lock, and was chambering around as they walked in, right? So my view is you're always buying a lottery. And so since you're always buying a lottery on it being misused, then there's going to be a victim, and it's never Pareto improving to buy a gun. Yeah, I like your story. I go with it. Or you could have my wife's answers. Her brother asked her, well, sis, why don't you buy a gun? She looks at it and says, because I use it. On the other hand, if you think about the wolves again, if you live in a place where there were wolves, or in the case of Cindy's family, where there was a mountain lion seen on the parking pad, then you wouldn't really feel all that dumb about owning a weapon, or at least a big knobby stick. Right? So it really, your feelings about guns are going to depend very much on whether you live here, where you can't imagine discharging anything without hitting something you didn't mean to, or whether you live in Montana, where there might be some very reasonable usages. And when you start balancing, will my kids get my hands on the damn thing, and it'll be a real disaster, or will I really need to use this thing because mountain lion's tangling with my cattle, horse, people, whatever. Then it's a harder guess, and you got to cut a little slack and put yourself in their shoes a little bit before you say no, never under no circumstances. So we have examples that are not Pareto improving, right? All we need to do is have a third party that's harder. That does the job nicely. The one about the children, that's harder. I find that harder, even if, let's say, the children are hurt. Yes, somebody is made worse off, but I can't explain why I find that one harder. It's at more of a distance, and it's through the market that it happened. I have to think about whether or not it really works the way we think. But I'm sure of the others. Back. Okay. So here's an out-of-equilibrium story, right? Here's Q less than equilibrium. What is the consumer willing to pay for the next unit of this good? The point of this demand curve, right?